The Brooklyn Vegan Show is a podcast about music brought to you by the music blog and online record store Brooklyn Vegan. Make sure to subscribe to hear all of our upcoming episodes featuring interviews with musicians and more, and find us 24/7 at brooklynvegan.com, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Hey, welcome to the new episode of the Brooklyn Vegan Show. I'm BV editor Andrew Sacker, and today's episode is an interview with Adam McIlwee of Wicca Phase Springs Eternal. Adam is also a former original member of Tiger's Jaw. He plays in the band Pay for Pain. He helped co-found GothBoiClique and more. One of the reasons Adam and I caught up is to discuss the new self-titled Wicca Phase album. We got into some of the influences behind the album, including folk rock groups like Fairport Convention and the Pentangle, as well as 90s dance music and other non-musical influences as well. We also talked about guest vocalist Zola Jesus, co-producer Ben Greenberg of Uniform, and more. In addition to talking about the new record, we did some career-spanning talk from Adam's early days coming up in the Scranton, Pennsylvania scene, to forming Tiger's Jaw, to eventually leaving Tiger's Jaw and going solo as Wicca Phase, and then how he met other members who would come to form GothBoiClique, including the late Lil Peep. And Adam also reflects on Peep's impact on culture and how that's only risen since his untimely death. Before we get to our chat, just a quick mention that listeners of the Brooklyn Vegan podcast can also get 30% off of their first year's membership at DistroKid by signing up at distrokid.com/VIP/BrooklynVegan. That link's also included in the description of this episode, and you can click directly from there. If you're unfamiliar with DistroKid, it's an awesome service for musicians that allows you to easily upload your music to all major streaming platforms, including Spotify, Apple Music, and more. DistroKid allows you to do automatic revenue splits, so collaborators and co-writers can get paid too. It provides you with an artist page that links to your music on all streaming services. It allows you to add lyrics, credits, and liner notes, and more. Again, you can get this discount at distrokid.com/VIP/BrooklynVegan, link in the description below. And with that, here's my chat with Adam McIlwee. So, hey, Adam, how's it going?
Not bad. How about yourself?
Pretty good. It is really hot in New York today, and I don't have any fans or ACs on, so the podcast sounds better. So,
I'm at a lake house that I'm renting for the summer. I'm in the basement right now, and the basement is cool, but it's incredibly hot everywhere else. And there was I thought it would be like an aesthetic choice to not have any air conditioning upstairs, but it's not gonna last. Yeah.
Well, the basement looks cool. I mean, I feel like I see like a big chessboard and like a garage door.
Yeah.
So we're actually recording this on the release day of your new record. How does it feel to have it out in the world? Have you looked at what people have said about it yet?
I have, I did a early access type thing on my Twitch channel last night, and that felt like I was more nervous about that than like the actual release. You know what I mean? Just because if like the people who care enough to join that didn't like it, then that would not be a good sign. But it went really well. The feedback has been positive so far, and even today the feedback has been really really good. So yeah, I feel good about it.
That's awesome. I think it's an awesome record.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to talk about some of the styles of music on the record, because I feel like, I guess Wicca Phase has kind of been called like emo trap, right? And this record's got clearly way more, even maybe none of that. I mean, it's got like post-punk and house beats and acoustic folk songs. Can you give some background on the direction you took on this record?
Yeah, when I first talked to Run for Cover about just about starting the record, that's always a weird thing too, because it's like, okay, do you guys want another record? Am I okay to proceed on this? And this time around, I asked them what they wanted, if there was anything that they wanted specifically, because I feel like I have a lot of music in me and a lot of different styles of music and everything like that. And their advice was just to, their suggestion was to maybe just um, try whatever whatever came over me, and um let this record be an opportunity to just showcase uh what they see as the versatility of my songwriting. I'm not saying that, but they said it. So that,
Yeah, I got you.
I'm not saying that I'm, whatever. But
Hmm.
at the same time too, I think that I'm sure everyone who's associated with a specific genre feels that that's limiting in some way. And so for them to, um, give me the go ahead to try different things and even, suggest it, um, that it felt good because I don't want to be limited to a specific genre, es- especially not emo rap or anything like that, because it is limiting. You don't hear about. Um, it's rare that you hear about great emo rap songwriters, what I like most about music is the songwriting process and the other stuff, the touring, even the recording is just stuff that you have to do to progress you just have to do it, right? But what I like most about it is the writing part of it. So, I just took their advice and tried, whatever felt natural and whatever came to me in the um 12 to 18 months that I was writing it.
That's cool. Now, I could never imagine. I mean, Run for Cover seems like an awesome label. I could never imagine they would want to limit you. But it's interesting to me that you say you kind of asked them for some guidance. I mean, what if they had said, like, make us an emo rap record?
I would have done it. I would have
Yeah?
done it. Yeah, I would have done it, and I would have tried my best to make the best one possible. That's what Suffer On was essentially was my attempt at that. If not the best, then at least the most concentrated and raw version of a record in that genre. Um but yeah, ultimately they're paying for it, and I'm not I've been releasing I self-release stuff even though I'm in a deal with them. I'm on a non-exclusive contract, so I just owe them a certain number of records, and aside from that, I can largely do whatever I want. So if they were to say we want an emo rap album, I would have given that to them, and I would have just, if I felt moved to make an '80s album or a dark wave album or something like that, I could have just done that on my own as well.
That's pretty cool. It's like an
Yeah,
interesting perspective, I think.
yeah. Thank you.
Um, yeah.
I'm not
Well,
saying it's interesting.
no, but I am.
Okay.
um, what were some of the core musical influences you were channeling on this record?
Well, when I'm writing a record, I try not to listen to music that will directly influence what comes out of me. Um, for example, the I think it was Corbin's last album came out like right as I started writing this album, and I was like, I cannot listen to this because one, I'm going to get like jealous, assuming that it's like going to be great because he's great. And two, because I don't want, even if I consciously try not to rip off something from him, it might seep its way into my subconscious and then make its way into a song where I don't even realize it. Right. So it's the same with, most anything new or relatively modern, I tend to stay away from when I'm writing. So I was listening to I have a friend who's like a couple years older than me, and he's really into classic rock and folk and stuff like that, and classic singer-songwriters, and he got me onto, Fairport Convention, and then all of their offshoots, Richard and Linda Thompson, the Pentangle, stuff like that, which is, a lot of it was 60s and 70s folk that, incorporated traditional music, like, their interpretations of traditional 15th and 16th century folk songs, as well as like, there's an element of like witchy folk music in their works too, specifically in the Pentangle, and so that seemed like a good. I was listening to a lot of that, and it felt safe to listen to that because I could learn from it. It was something that was new to me and that I was really into, and I knew that not a lot of that would make its way into the record, and if it did, it would be unrecognizable from its original form. And then there's just, other stuff that I generally like. Moving Without Movement is essentially what would have been a Tiger's Jaw song had I been in that band. It has that tempo that a lot of my Tiger's Jaw songs have, if not most of them, but just kind of transformed in a way that would make sense for me to play it solo live. So it has programmed drums and synths and stuff like that. I've always been into dance music since I was young. Like the first music I was listening to on the radio was that weird, like early to mid '90s Euro dance invasion that seemed to creep into top 40 US radio, and that stuck with me. So there's some of that, and then again, just like traditional singer songwriter folk stuff.
That's sick. Yeah, I mean, I definitely get what you mean about like, but there's no way you could really listen to Fairport Convention and then sound just like it, just based on like the way you sing,
Right.
like yeah. And that's also like, just to nerd out for a second, like I also, one of my very first loves was like 90s Eurodance stuff, like
Cool.
huge. I'm like, 90s baby. And then huge Fairport Convention and Pentangle fan. So that's like a very
Awesome.
yeah, it's cool to hear that that was like kind of informing this stuff.
Yeah, I was really unfamiliar with them, and then I think what happened was Richard Thompson was playing in Woodstock. He did like 2 nights at Lee Von Helm's barn there. My friend wanted someone to go with, and he just turned me on to them, and um, yeah, it's like a whole other world that I really don't hear too much about, at least like from my friends or anything like that. But really awesome, and uh, yeah, I love it, completely love it. I love finding, like, whole new pockets of music that I'm totally unfamiliar with, and then finding, like, a whole world within it.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, I think what keeps it fun as you kind of get older and
Mhm.
like, yeah. Yeah, and like especially that stuff, I feel like you said, you don't always hear too much about it today. Like feels like there's still some untapped potential because it's like, like how many modern bands are going to be influenced by Joy Division, like
Right.
but to kind of channel something that's less channeled, it's kind of like, oh, like there's some it's new here even though it's 70 years old.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So from what I understand, this record, one of the things you were focusing on is the sort of world building aspect of your songwriting, and then you pulled things from movies, video games, comics. Can you kind of like talk about what you mean by all that?
Yeah, of course. Early on, in 10 years ago when I was starting Wicca Phase, every song was world building in the sense that it was an attempt to give the project its own identity, and also, explore different interests that I have, or thoughts that I had, that I just hadn't really tapped into uh creatively. But it was done uh it wasn't done in a deliberate way. It was a lot of buzzwords and very obvious aesthetic references and things like that. Um, and then I got away from that. I think just, naturally, I every couple of years, my songwriting tends to go in a different direction. I got away from that, and I went back to what I was doing with Tiger Shaw, which was just like emo stuff, essentially. You know what I mean? And melodrama and heavy melodrama. That's what I was doing from 2015 to up through Suffer On. And then when it came time to doing this record, I thought, well, one, I didn't want to just redo what I did with Suffer On, and I thought a good way to do something different would be to go back to what I was originally doing, but with 10 years more experience. I was in my early 20s then, 2021. Now I'm in my early 30s. So approaching that sort of world building with a more deliberate approach, with a more a natural maturity that just comes from having lived a decade longer, and also a whole new set of influences. Red Dead Redemption 2, it was like crucial for me, because it has a lot of, it's a fully developed world that has a lot of weirdness to it and sadness to it and emotion. Um, and that really resonated with me. And then a lot of the stuff that I've been into for 10 years, but maybe hadn't distilled in Wicca Phase writing. Twin Peaks, Grant Morrison comics. I mean, those are the two stuff you can go back to and get more out of every time you consume them, and also stuff that doesn't really have definitive answers or resolutions, or the meaning is kind of up for interpretation. Um, that's the stuff that really interests me, and that's what I was consuming and trying to kind of bottle up on this record.
I get the sense that when you approach your art, like the whole aesthetic, the whole picture is important. Like the album art, the videos, the
Mhm.
song. Like I feel like I get the sense that it all ties together for you.
Yeah, I'm not. I felt like up until this record, I wasn't super focused on the visual side of it because I wasn't. It just doesn't come naturally to me. But with the right collaborators, it did come together. I have Adam, my friend Adam, Chase, who's been doing my videos for a couple years now. We're now at the point where very little planning has to be done. He knows my approach to videos. I know his approach to videos. So it kind of just comes together, with an email or two or a text or something like that. Run for Cover suggested, we had a hard time with the album art for this. Just, I kept trying stuff from people that was more in a graphic design direction rather than photography. And it just wasn't landing the way I had hoped it was, because I wasn't really giving a lot of direction either. Again, it's not my strong suit. So I just tend to hope that people come back with whatever's in my brain, whatever. And that doesn't really work all the time. And then Run for Cover suggested that I link up with Abru, who shot the record cover and a lot of the photos around the release. And I mean, she got it. Like, she knew, I sent her references, and most of the references I sent her were her own pictures. I was unfamiliar with her before. But once I went through her Instagram, I was like, this, and this one. Like, if we could combine these three with she listened to the record too, with that sort of insight. I think we can make it happen. And we did. So I am getting better at it. I'm learning to be um more vocal in my direction, because a lot of it isn't coming from me. It's just coming from collaborators. I don't always work well with others, but if I do find someone that um if I do find someone that I am able to click with, I'm comfortable with voicing exactly what I want, or at least enough of painting enough of a picture to get what I want delivered.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Aber's work is amazing, and I feel like her aesthetic is really suits this record for sure.
Yeah, she's great. Um, I need, a big part of like one of my weaknesses too is that I just don't research enough when it comes to photography and stuff like that. So I need to get better at that.
So tell me about the photo on the cover.
um, in January, actually for Christmas, yeah, for Christmas, my fiance got me horseback riding lessons. Um, because of Red Dead Redemption 2 and watching a lot of Yellowstone and, and stuff like that. And and I loved it. I loved it. And then it was, a couple days later I posted some Polaroids from that, and Run for Cover was like, "Why isn't that the photo? Like we should just get you back out there on a horse, saddle up and we'll get, a good photographer for it," which is how I got linked with Abru. And And so I called them. I called the horse uh stable, and it was they weren't like totally aware of like what I was trying to do. They didn't understand that I just wanted the same thing that I did to, get on a horse, but this time a photographer would be walking next to me, right? That's it. And they they had a like some like teenager who works there, this girl, like come out with us, and she was the guide, and helped us like just like navigate the land and stuff like that. And even like midway through the shoot, which was a long shoot, we shot all day, maybe 10 hours, not 10 hours on the horse, but 10 hours of shooting and maybe about 5 hours on the horse. It was like halfway through she was just like, what is this for? Like, what? She asked if it was for my high school senior picture, which is really flattering. And I was like, no, like, we talked about this, but I was like, I'm a musician and this for a record cover. And then she was like instantly way more into what we were doing and like way more helpful. And and not like, she like cut the rate in half at the end of the shoot. So Uh, yeah, it was just that, and it was honestly just like Ebru working with the horse, the trail person to like get the horse like where Ebru wanted it with the lighting and stuff like that. A lot of shouting, Ebru shouting at me to move a certain way, like move my head a certain way, and then the girl yelling at the horse to move its head a certain way. It was like chaos, and it was freezing. It was probably 15 degrees that day. It was so cold, but it worked out pretty well. There's about 500 pictures of me on that horse from that day. So,
Damn, you got to release
yeah.
outtakes.
I know. I know.
So speaking of collaborators, one of my favorite songs on the new record is the Zola Jesus duet. I feel like your voices sound awesome together. How did that collaboration come about?
That was I think it was Ben Greenberg suggesting that we get like just a female vocalist on the song, and Run for Cover suggested Zola, and I did not think that was possible. It was like the same day I had a call with Run for Cover when we were recording that song. Had the call, and I was like, "Hey, by the way, if you have any suggestions," and they suggested Zola. I had been a fan of hers since I was a teenager, and I asked Ben if what he thought of that, and those two are label mates, I think. Or Ben does a lot of work with Sacred Bones. I'm not sure if Uniform is on Sacred Bones or not, but he just emailed her like the song, and then 2 days later we had it back. It was so easy. I really still can't believe it.
That's so awesome.
Yeah,
Have you met her in person yet?
not in person. No, we've just talked on Instagram and stuff like that.
Um, so yeah, I mean, even having been on the record, this is your first time working with him too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
How did
He-
you first cross paths with Ben, and what was working with him and Darcy like? I mean, I know you've worked with Darcy in the past.
Yeah, so Ben was just on a list of the way I've been recording these records with Run for Cover is I'll make all the songs in Ableton, and then normally I'll work with a producer who's like one of my friends to clean them up, and then we go to a studio and pull it all together. And we did that with Sufferon, with Doves and Will Yip. So and I like that approach a lot. Um, because there's kind of like a buffer in between me and the final producer. There's someone who can get it to where I want to be, who I know and I'm familiar with, and that was Darcy's role. I love Darcy. I think his production is incredible, and so I knew that I wanted him on it, and he's so like versatile too. So what I did was I would send Darcy all my stems. He would either clean them up or make new ones or whatever. And then Run for Cover sent me a list of like 20 people. It was Tom from Run for Cover sent a list of like 20 producers that he suggested. And then I think Jeff responded saying that Ben would be like the most interesting one because he's normally working on like heavier music, but still darker and uh and so we just reached out to Ben like that, and working with him was awesome. I went to his studio. We did a lot of pre-production, which is something that I haven't really done. But he took my stems and Darcy's stems and kind of put together what he liked from each, along with his own ideas that we would record in the studio with like live instruments. And he did that like all before I went in. So then I just went to New York for a couple of weeks, and every day he just had a chart that had like what we needed to do for each song, and it was so easy, and uh, it moved so fast, it really fast. I don't even think we used all of the time that we had booked because we were doing like a song or two a day, so it was great. I would love to work with him more on anything. He seems like even if I had like a full band or something like that, I would want Ben's hands on it because he just seems to have great ideas and knows how to execute what I'm after.
He definitely seems super versatile. I feel like his name shows up on a lot of different types of records.
Yeah, that's what attracted me to him too. When I was, uh, you know, similar to photographers, when it comes to producers, like unless they're like beat producers, I'm not really familiar with like who's making records. And uh his credentials were enough to get me interested, and Jeff suggesting it because Jeff doesn't weigh in creatively a lot on the label side. um so for him to speak up and be like, Ben Greenberg should be it, that carried a lot of weight with me too. But also, like, yeah, like that, just that um, wide discography was promising.
Yeah. So, what are your kind of plans for performing this stuff live? I mean, I know you doing it all solo with like backing tracks and
I don't know. I don't know yet. I need to figure that out. I believe the majority of it will be live, like singing with backing tracks. Um, I asked Ben Greenberg that too, like, how am I gonna play these live? And he was like, just do it the way you normally do, and then play the acoustic songs like with a guitar. So there will be that. And we'll see what else I can get together. Um, in the meantime, I don't have enough time to like put a band together and practice that yet, but we're going to be doing two release shows. They're branded events called Eternal Twilight. Wicca Phase Prince Eternal presents Eternal Twilight. One in Los Angeles in August, and then one in Brooklyn in September. And they're going to be like more like curated events, mini festivals, maybe 8 to 10 acts from like a wide range of genres to try and hammer home the just like the wide range of influences on this record. Um, and also like maybe get like a magician there or some sort of uh interactive element that will make these feel less like a traditional show and more like some sort of event or like an art opening or something like that.
That's awesome. I look forward to hearing more about it.
Thank you.
Um, so I love all this talk about the new record. I want to go back in time, if that's cool.
Yeah, of course.
So you've been making music for nearly 20 years at this point. Um, what were some of the moments, maybe a show you saw, an album you heard, none of the above, that made you realize like playing music or being part of a music community is something you might like to spend your life doing?
Um, Early on, when I was about 12. How old are you in 6th grade? Probably like 11 or
I think
12,
like
right?
11 turning 12, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, it would have been then, going into middle school, uh, some of my friends had older brothers that were just into they were in punk bands and were putting on shows, and that was new to me, uh, but I loved it, like, I was at that point, I was probably just into, like, Blink-182 and rap, but but that really appealed to me. I remember going to a talent show that year, like a school talent show, and, there was a couple people from the Menzingers who went to middle school with me. They were a couple years older, and they played, there was, like, 2 groups of them, and one of them played, Maxwell Murder by Rancid, and, the other one played, uh, I think they played Roots Radical by Rancid, 2 Rancid songs, same talent show, and, that was like, that was it for me when it came to getting into music, and then, they were putting on shows. Tom from the Menzingers, his younger brother was one of my close friends in middle school. He also ended up playing in Tiger's Jaw for a little bit, but, uh, going over his house and Tom would be having band practice and later, other friends with older brothers and stuff like that. And just seeing, when you're 12 years old, 13 years old, the people who are 15 and 16 seem like the coolest people in the world, right? Especially if they're active and doing things and organizing shows and they have like their own style and stuff. So that it was just like emulating that and learning from them like how do I, how do I play power chords? How do I, they help me with guitar and stuff like that. How do I play ska upstrokes? Like, explain this to me. And then like going on their computers and burning CDs and stuff like that was all just like really formative. I was just consuming so much new music and without a real way of like uh doing anything with it. It was just a learning process. But really it was like from then, from like 12 to 15 or 16, that I was just in a constant state of media consumption, all with punk music. And then and then uh when like in high school, I was in, the same mindset, but I was branching out a little bit. Got really into Bright Eyes and like Saddle Creek Records. Saddle Creek used to have like used to upload MP3s to their website of like singles from albums and stuff like that. And that was major for me, just branching out into singer songwriter world. Um, and also going to the library and just taking out. I think you could take out like 10 CDs at a time. I would just pick random ones, go home, burn them, or upload them to my computer, take them back, and do the same thing. And it was that, and it was just at that point I was like, I could do uh I could be in an indie band or something like that, right? And now these doors are opening. Um for whatever I want to do. And that's what Tiger's Jaw ended up being. It wasn't, it didn't translate to the stuff. It wasn't a one-to-one correlation of what I was listening to what I was making. I just didn't have the tools to really understand how to do that. Um, but that was like the journey there was, looking up to friends' older brothers and copying what they were doing.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I've seen the Menzingers do Rancid covers, so I guess some things never
I bet.
change.
No, I'm sure they have. I know they play "Knowledge" by Operation Ivy too,
Mm.
if someone's string breaks or something like that. That's one of their go-tos. Yeah, but all those guys, and they were kind, like, they could have not given me any time, because I was just their friend's younger brother, but they were really kind. On my first day of high school, I went to, like, a new high school, where I didn't have a lot of friends, and I sat with the Menzingers, like, the first week of school before I got lunch. They were nice enough to do that, until I, like, found my own people, but yeah, I really do feel like I owe a lot to them, and I talk about them a lot, but it's really all I can do, because I am so grateful, and that set me up on a path where I could make music full time now in my 30s.
Yeah. Yeah, what you were saying too about like very early Tiger's Jaw, and you're like, we could be an indie band, but maybe like all the tools weren't there. I mean, I always think about like it's named after a Microphones lyric, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and I feel like that first record is pretty kind of like lo-fi indie vibes. Like,
yeah.
I mean, when you like, would you have viewed the band as an emo band when you formed, or like, did that only kind of come later?
No, it came later. You know what happened was we started playing shows with like punk and hardcore bands, and then that influence, it was like I saw what songs were getting reactions from other bands at shows, so I was like, maybe we could be a little bit heavier, maybe we could incorporate more punk or emo or whatever into it. It wasn't like that conscious, but it was like, hey, we're the softest band at every show we play, and I would like to be a little bit more accepted, especially when, like, we're playing with Title Fight on a regular basis, you know what I mean? It doesn't it you know, I don't wanna stand out too much or be too much of an outlier, so that's what happened there.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, that whole Scranton scene with like, you guys, Menzingers, Captain were sinking, like now it's like the stuff of legend, to like, I mean, what was the scene like just kind of before all these bands started to take off on a national level?
It was awesome. It was when I said that, I found my own people after eating lunch with the Menzingers, it was Captain were sinking, like, they became they were my friends, they were, like, my age and stuff like that. Um, uh, it it was just, it was cool. It was me and Ben from Tiger's Jaw were doing sound, for this venue called Test Pattern. It was like an art gallery, and they would have shows there sometimes, and me and Ben were just going to every show to the point where they were like, "Hey, can you work these?" And then that gave us the freedom to book our own shows. So it was just like regularly Tiger's Jaw, Captain We're Sinking, the Menzingers, or some iteration of those groups. And even before that, a big influence on Tiger's Jaw were these local indie bands. There was a record label called Prison Jazz Records, and they were, if we were in our mid teens, they were probably in their 25, 30 range, and they were awesome. But they weren't playing the same types of shows that Tiger's Jaw or the Menzingers would have been playing. And what Tiger's Jaw ended up doing was like booking those bands too, bands that sounded like the Kinks or something like that on these shows. Um, and it just so now we had like a pool of 10 bands that we can pull from locally at any point, and then also bring in touring people or provide a another stop for touring people. And it's crazy. Like I kind of think I thought that was just how every city was, until later when I was like, wait a minute, like it is not how how every city was, and it's not what Scranton is now either. Not really sure why, but I don't know. It's just crazy to look back on and see the success there. And it's also validating to be like, yeah, I thought these people were really talented, and then they get signed, and they're still playing music. So it's like, okay, I was I wasn't totally off about that.
Yeah, it's like wild how many like legitimately like signed touring successful bands from that world like formed as like high school kids, and
I
it's just the
know,
same band now.
I know, it's crazy. Even um, it was funny, like when Tiger's Jaw was just me and Ben, and Brianna joined later. We would have like a rotating cast of like a rhythm section. Um, all different people, like whoever we could get, and then Dennis, who eventually joined Tiger's Jaw, was having shows at his house when his parents went away. He would have shows, and he booked us, and even that, like he went to a different school. He hit me up on Instant Messenger. He was just a fan of Tiger's Jaw. Um, Even him just inviting us to play that show with Three Man Cannon, who's also had success like at the indie level, opened up a whole new world where like now all of my friends from this public school are friends with people from this other public school and private school, and like those people are still making music today, be it Three Man Cannon or I mean, there's a ton of bands, like iterations of uh of groups of people that did meet in high school or from those original high school connections. And maybe that's just how society works. I don't know, but it is really crazy to see. Like, yeah, I can't explain it really.
It's definitely surreal and I think a bit unique. I mean, because yeah. So how did you just you're talking about like meeting bands from other schools and stuff. How did you start to meet like neighboring Pennsylvania bands like Title Fight and Bounce and Composure?
Ah, man, I have no idea. I think, Tiger's Jaw used to play at, a basement in Wilkes-Barre, called the Black Lodge. Very small basement, 40 I mean, it was not much bigger than this, which is like 40 feet, and and they would have, like, crazy shows there. Really, really crazy shows, like, big hardcore shows. Um, they would get a lot of indie bands to play. And so Tiger's Jaw, started playing there a lot, and that's how the Title Fight connection formed. And then from there, meeting Balance and Composure, getting introduced to the Run for Cover guys and stuff like that. And for whatever reason, like that just seemed to be the next step of who we played with. I guess that would probably be more Ben and Brianna, like forging those connections, uh, because it seemed to happen like I don't. It didn't seem to happen with my involvement. Not saying that I didn't want it to happen. I just don't really. All of a sudden, we were playing with these bands, and I don't know. I but I that's my gut is that it's just from playing that basement in Wilkes-Barre. The first time we played there, um, I was at playing another house show, and I heard that I think it was Thanksgiving who Adrian Orange, who was signed to Phil Elverum's label, was playing at the Black Lodge like as a tour stop, and I called the guy whose house it was, and I was like, "I'm in this band. You have to get us on this show." Like, um, and he did. He was like, "Yeah, I probably would have put you on anyway." And and then it was like the next week, Cold World would have been playing in the same basement, like 40-person basement. It's funny how that stuff works.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
So when did you start to realize like something was happening like outside of the local level? Like you would play a different city and kids would know the words.
It was after we did the tour, our first tour with Title Fight, which I think would have been their first tour as well. And I mean, that was crazy because, yeah, I think it was their first tour. And seeing how popular they were already, and then just getting the residual, like, whatever, however that happens, um, But it was that, and then as we kept playing those, like, those balance and composure shows or shows with Daylight, Super Heaven, or whoever, more with Title Fight, that's when I noticed, like, stuff picking up. Um, we signed with Run for Cover right around that time. It was right after the first Title Fight tour that we signed with Run for Cover. Jeff saw us, at one of those shows, and, I mean, I think that helped us a lot too because, I remember even then, anything that Run for Cover was putting out was, like, it felt important, and, it felt like, something new and something that you could get in on the ground level on, um, like Man Overboard or Transit or bands like that, and, uh and I think it was, like, just that, like, having that connection helped with people starting to, become aware of us, listening to us on their own at a level bigger than the local level.
Yeah, that era was definitely nuts. It did feel just like every new band on Run for Cover was a big deal, and like it felt
Mhm.
like every day or week or month you just stumbled upon a new like genuinely awesome band.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm gonna fast forward a bit. I want to ask about Charmer. So
Mhm.
you, Dennis, and Pat already knew you were leaving the band when you decided to write the record. That's correct, right?
My memory is murky there. I think we had already booked. I mean, I don't know exactly when. I can tell you the day I decided to leave Tiger Shaw. It was a show that we played at Union Transfer. Let me see if I can find that. It would have been like 2013 maybe or 2012. Oh boy, I don't know. Eh, yeah, I don't know. Oh, here it is. Okay, so it would have been November. I'm looking at Setlist FM. It would have been November 30th of 2012. We played with Title Fight for the Floral Green release show. One of their release shows. It was that after, like, on the way to that show, for whatever reason, I was like, "I think I'm done. Like, I'm not having fun anymore. I'm getting anxious about I'm just not having fun." Uh, and then we didn't really have much going on for a couple months. It was, writing Charmer and stuff like that. And then it just got to the point, early spring of 2013 where plans were starting to be made for the future, tours and stuff like that. And at that point, everyone would have been like out of college, so it would have been the time to move forward. So yeah, that's when I decided to leave. Before like committing to a tour. I think the tour was already booked, but in in my head, I was not going to go on that tour. And yeah, I guess we would have been writing Charmer in the months leading up to that. We always wrote separately. Like Ben and I always wrote separately. There was never a, hey, for these 2 weeks, we're going to a studio to write the album. It was always like when we had enough songs, we would do it. We would learn them and then record them. So yeah, I would have had almost all of my songs for that record done, and then I quit the band, but studio time was booked. And we made it clear, like, if you guys are okay with us playing on the record, we would like to, because I had 5 or 6 songs on the record, so that would have kind of thrown thrown a wrench in the works too.
So now I'm like, just like based on hearing you talk about it now, I'm sure you were just like leaving the band is what I have to do. But did you, I mean, that record ended up kind of being a bit of a breakthrough for Tiger's Jaw. Did you, one, have any sense that would happen? And two, once it did you kind of have any feelings about like, well, these songs I wrote are out in the world, they're catching on, and I can't go on the road and I can't play them?
Uh, I mean, I didn't wanna play them, you know what I mean? Because I knew it wasn't those songs. I love those songs. I think "Cool" and "Charmer" are 2 of my best 2 of the best songs I've ever written, but, I didn't want it was playing the old songs that really killed me, like, playing songs that I wrote when I was 16 and 17. as a 23-year-old, it was just not working for me. I felt uncomfortable with it, and excuse me, what made it worse was that the old songs were what people loved. Um, and I just felt like, man, if this is what you like from us, it it there's a disconnect between me, at least me personally, in the fan base. If these are the songs you like and this is what you want from this band, can't be a part of this band because I hate these older songs. I you know your songwriting ability from when you're 16 years old to 23 is huge. Um, so that's how I felt. At least for me, that's how I felt. No, I wasn't bummed. I wasn't bummed. I honestly feel like I had the best of both worlds there because the songs were out and I didn't have to play them, but it's still my voice on the record. I felt pretty good about it, actually. And at that time, my interest was the writing and recording of new songs. That's all I wanted to do. Tiger's Jaw was moving too slowly for me. I think any band, I have that problem with any band, is that it just moves too slow. Um, the ability to write and record and then release a song in the same day, um, like I was able to in early Wicca Phase, was exactly what I wanted out of music. So no, I mean it was. I felt fine about it. I really did. I even played with Tiger's Jaw, not in the band, but I played. Wicca Phase played a show in Scranton with Tiger's Jaw a couple months later. And even that, like, I didn't feel sad about it or anything like that. I was happy that Ben and Brianna were doing what they wanted to do and continuing to do what they wanted to do, and I was happy that they didn't have the friction that me, Pat, and Dennis brought, because I do feel like Tiger Shaw was largely um a band of two bands. It was Ben and Brianna. Um, they were more. Ben and Brianna were not business minded, but they did know how to advance the band and how to um just what steps needed to be taken, right? And they knew that there's a little bit of a game that you have to play if you want to be successful in music. Pat and Dennis never wanted to play that game, ever, 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 ever. There was no compromise for them whatsoever. um and then I was somewhere in the middle, whatever. Sometimes I would stick with Pat and Dennis, sometimes I'd be on the side of Ben and Brianna. But there was that constant friction that made touring towards the end not fun. And yeah, just really not fun and tense and stressful, and that's never what I wanted music to be. Uh yeah, sorry, that was a long answer. Sometimes I think back about Tiger Shaw and I like realize things, now that I didn't realize 10 years ago. And it sounds like revisionist history, but really it's just like, oh, wait, like that made sense to me now. Like, I can see how things did go wrong there or something like that. And I have those moments all the time, anytime I talk about Tiger's Jaw.
No, I mean hindsight is 2020, and like it's fascinating to hear these stories and hear these reflections now, because I'm sure in the moment it's hard to have that much clarity about it.
Yeah, I was very immature when I was in Tiger's Jaw too. I was I would let Ben and Brianna make every decision because I was already losing interest, and my real interest with the band was just like I liked playing shows. I liked playing new songs at shows and stuff like that. Um, and I liked the attention from it. Uh, and I liked like drinking beers with John Simmons before we played with Balance and Composure or something like that, right? But those aren't the things in music that you really. That's not why you should be in it. There's no long term happiness there. It's just momentary, stuff like that. So I don't know. It was a tricky thing. And when you're 22, 23, you don't really I felt like I didn't know anything, and I was, just kinda lashing out in my own way because I wasn't mature enough yet to come to the decision that maybe Tiger's Jaw wasn't for me.
Mhm. Yeah. Now, not only did you kinda leave, like, tour life and just, following that type of path for a band behind, you also left rock music behind. You did Wicca
Mhm,
Phase, and you kinda started doing, again, the emo rap thing, which at the time also was, like, a bit of a novel concept.
mhm.
I mean, what kind of inspired you to take your music in that direction?
First, it was just my goal was to make, like, electronic music of any sort, whatever I could. Bought a bunch of keyboards or had a bunch of keyboards, was recording them into an 8-track recorder. Um, I would use drum loops that were on keyboards or like GarageBand built-in stuff, but I wasn't really that great with it. Like I just wasn't familiar with like using an online recording thing or computer based. Um, and then at that time, like, I was just on Tumblr all the time. Tumblr was such a major part of Wicca Phase, and it was, similar to, like, I was just learning about all this new cool stuff that felt more like me than the world of Tiger's Jaw did, and, the one person that kept, uh, coming up in my Tumblr feed was Coldheart from GothBoiClique, and uh he had a good Tumblr, like, he would, like, post, like, cool images and stuff like that, but would also post beats and then be like, "Hey, these beats are available on my Bandcamp," or stuff like that, and then, it that kind of, uh, just I knew I wasn't gonna be, like, rapping over them, so I was like, "Maybe this could be something," right? Um if I write lyrics, it's almost like I'm in a band where I'm just the singer and the band is writing the music and all I have to do is write the lyrics, which is what I like doing anyway. Um, and that's how that kind of took off from that.
Now, and you've kind of said this in other interviews, so I'm quoting you. It's not me saying it. You've said like it was almost a little bit of a rough start. Like you weren't. It was a new thing, and you were still kind of finding yourself. And like so, kind of
Mhm.
walk me through how you started to meet like other like-minded musicians, many of whom would end up making up GothBoiClique, and kind of like really start to find the sound, figure out what Wicca Phase could be.
It was all I mean it all started on Tumblr with me meeting Cold Heart. I think me being in Tiger's Jaw carried more weight than I thought. When I reached out to him and then he introduced me, just through him, I just started meeting all these other people. He lived in California at the time, um, and he had his own set of, like, internet friends, and then I got introduced to them and, people like Horsehead, Netarb, and then when I met Netarb introduced me to almost everyone. 90% of the people that I am working with to this day are like through him just because that's his talent, like one of his talents. He's like he's like a friendship A&R or something like that. And so yeah, I mean early on it was just like a lot of digging, trying to find producers and stuff like that while also making my own beats still. And then um through it had to have been through Cold Heart and Netarb that I got introduced to the Thrax House people, which was Seattle. It was Seattle and LA based internet rap crew. Kind of was an offshoot of Raider Clan or came out of Raider Clan. And then that was like a group chat with 20 people, and then all of a sudden now I have all these built-in producers. Like I have a built-in network of producers. Like Fishnark, that's where I met Fishnark. I had Cold Heart, Horsehead, um, that I could kind of work with when it came to the production side, to artwork, um, anything really, mixing stuff like that. It was like a whole built-in resource. And then I think what happened was just that Thrax House. there's too many people in it, like way too many people in it. People were being added, every day that because it wasn't just musicians either. It was like also like graffiti artists and then just like friends of friends. Um so then somehow we I think it was just like me, Cold Heart, Horsehead, and Fish Narc were kind of talking more on our own than we were in the group, and that's how GothBoiClique started. Um, I met Doves around that time. He just emailed me beats, and they were like some of the best beats I had heard at that point. Um, and and then what happened was someone booked a show with all of us in LA, and it's my first time playing there as Wicca Phase, probably the first time playing like anywhere outside of Pennsylvania or New York as Wicca Phase. And then um that's where like at that point it was like, okay, now I found like my people, and there are people who will come see this. And I mean, yeah, that's how it really started. I have no idea what year that was, or in 2015 or something like that, maybe.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. How'd you first meet Lil Peep, and how did you react to his music when you first heard it?
That would have been through Horsehead and Cold Heart. He had moved to LA from Denver, I believe. Um, and Netarb showed me his music. Um, and it was just pretty obvious that he knew what he was doing. He wasn't like a kid trying to figure it out. It was pretty fully formed early on. So I was into it, and then he started hanging out with the Goth Boy Clique LA contingency, and Horsehead wanted to add him to the group, and I was like, I don't even know him. Um And at that time, it was like me, Cold Heart, and Horsehead kind of doing the decision making. Um, and I was like, I don't know him. So he called me and and was just like, yeah, I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing. And I'm about to sign some deal, which I think ended up being his first access entertainment deal. Um But he was like, I would love to be a part of GothBoiClique before the ball starts rolling on me, before this machine it gets its talons in me, um, because I think it could help you guys too, and he's like, and I've been a fan of yours. And it was pretty much that. It was like, okay, let's put him in. Why not? And because he was genuine, like he wasn't like so many of the people that I met at that time were just like, I don't know. They just weren't genuine. You know what I mean? They were just also trying to find themselves and get themselves over and make a name for themselves and push their career. I did not get that impression from Gus. He was just smart kid and well spoken and whatever. So I met him. We had a show in LA like 2 weeks later. It was billed as Goth Boy Click, and he played with us, and I met him at that show for the first time. And yeah, and he was a fan. He was a legitimate fan. We played a group set, and he was singing harmonies to everyone's songs. It was pretty incredible.
I watched the documentary that came out, and I mean, just even from that, which I mean, it's crazy because there's so much like real time footage because we're in the era of smartphones,
Yeah.
and he just seems really genuine.
Yeah, he is. I have not watched that documentary, but but he is genuine. He definitely was genuine 100%.
It's also like it's bittersweet, but I feel like his impact on sort of the broader mainstream culture like didn't completely reveal itself until after he passed.
Yeah.
Like it's like, do you get like the Machine Gun Kelly pop punk record without Lil Peep? Like I don't know if you do.
No, you don't. Let's just say you don't get it. He's not wearing those like anime hats, and he's not. No, he's not doing any of this without. No, He's not.
So 2018 is when you signed Wicca Phase to run for cover,
Mhm.
reuniting you with the label that helped break Tiger's Jaw. What made you decide to be like, all right, let's go back to there with this project now?
That was in the works. Well, it was I don't know how far along the talks were, but there was definitely, preliminary talks about seeing whether would be a good fit, whatever. Um then Peep died, and then I was approached. That's when, like, I think we all started, everyone in GothBoiClique started getting like major label offers, be it as a group or as individuals. And so for a couple months, the Run for Cover thing was on the back burner while I just entertained other stuff, major label stuff. And it just didn't seem appealing. From the start, it wasn't appealing because I knew that they wouldn't know who I was had Peep not died, right? And it was pretty obvious to see that they were just trying to get the next Gus locked in, right? And I know I'm not that guy. Like, I'm not my skill set is totally different than Peeps. And it was just like after a couple of months of that where I was like, I think I'm going to be happiest with Run for Cover because they're not asking me to change anything. Eh, they're not promising anything that seems skeptical or like, that I would doubt would actually happen and end up costing me my career or getting stuck in some sort of label deal where I can't put out records or anything like that. Um, I don't have faith at the time, especially even then. I knew, like, it does not make sense for me to sign a $1 million, let's just hypothetically say $1 million record deal, because I don't know that I could make a record label $1 million back, right? But I could make a record label a couple $1,000s back, right? And then collect on the royalties for the rest of my life, um and still have that creative freedom. So it was then. I also saw how much a lot of these, bigger labels, there was 2 of them specifically, how much they did not want me to sign with Run for Cover, and that kinda pushed me towards Run for Cover. Um, yeah, I don't know. It was like what they're saying about Run for Cover is what I like about Run for Cover, that they are more of a boutique thing, and it's not, I know everyone who works there, and I know the inner workings of the label. I know who does what. I know what they're able to offer, what I would need to bring to the table on my own. Um, so then it was like, yeah, let's just, it was pretty much like, hey, can you guys send me a contract so I could sign it and like we can just put this matter to rest. And then it was after that, every all of those people who were approaching me after Peep died just went away. Just gone, which is fine by me. Yeah. Some of them also got canceled too, because that was right around the time when we started, like, when people started getting canceled at, like, big companies and stuff like that. So it worked out pretty well for me because yeah, I don't know. Then I don't have like some weird association with these guys who I barely know, and whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't really sound like they would have got where you were coming from either.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I think it's cool that your first single for Run for Cover was with Georgia Mack, as like one of the early Camp Cope songs had a Tiger's Jaw lyric, like reference in the lyrics, and then they signed a Run for Cover. I feel like it's like this full circle thing to kind of make your Run for Cover debut with Georgia.
Yeah, Georgia had a Wicca Phase tattoo early on too, like way before I was signed with Run for Cover. Um, uh, and yeah, I didn't know her at the time. I knew Camp Cope, but I didn't know her personally, and she's become a good friend of mine. She actually did merch for my the last LA show I played when I needed someone in a pinch.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
So with Suffer On, I feel like you kind of started to bring back more guitar based stuff after a while of not doing that. What made you at that point, pick up a guitar again after years of more beats and stuff?
I think it was knowing that I was going to work with Doves on that record, um, and he had done a lot of great sampling with acoustic guitars, um, so I just thought that that would work, and what I like most about his production is he has, like, really frantic drum sounds, like hi-hat patterns and, like, snare rolls and stuff like that, so I thought a good balance to that would be, like, a more natural approach with acoustic guitar, and that's really all it was, and then, uh, so we did that, and then, um, when we when I went to the studio with Will Yip, really nothing changed from the original demos except we re-recorded the guitar, and that was it. But yeah, it was just to, like, combat the, over the top hi-hat patterns and stuff that Doves does.
Hmm. And then the following year, you reunite with Pat and Dennis in Pay for Pain. Um, I mean, it's the first time the three of you were in a band together in 6 or 7 years. How did doing that compare to where you had left off in Tiger's Jaw?
We had attempted to start that band, like, multiple times. I think starting in 2016, we played once, and then the same thing the next year. It was always just, like, once a year, we would get together and play, like, the same songs that we played the year before or whatever, and then, uh, I don't really know, like, what led to us organizing, because again, we were not the organizers in Tiger's Jaw, right? So, um, I don't really know how that happened. I think we just had enough songs and decided to record them. Our friend Matt, who's in Three Man Cannon, also might be in Pay for Pain now. I'm not sure where we landed on that. He might be in the band. I don't know. We haven't had a practice in a while, but um he has a studio, in the Poconos, so that him having that kind of made it more of a less of like, "Okay, we have studio time booked, we have to get this together," more of like, "Let's go to Matt's for the weekend and record, see what comes out of it," and, yeah, that's how that happened. But, um, we're all over the place, geographically and also, um, not mentally, but mentally. You know?
You were saying before about Tiger's Jaw, like you'd write a lot of your stuff alone. Like, is it the same for Pay for Pain? Like, or do you just kind of write
Yeah.
everything that becomes? So, I guess when you're writing, then, like, are you like in your head, this is a Wicca Phase song, this is a Pay for Pain song, or, um,
The line is blurred now. It's really blurred. Like, no, there's no real uh I don't know. I don't even know how I decided what songs from this record, like this new record, what would lead them to be on the record versus going to Pay for Pain. I have no idea. Now it's like uh I have maybe 8 or 9 Wicca Phase songs written that aren't recorded that could just go to Pay for Pain, and they would make sense. But it's also looking at what Dennis is doing. Dennis, after the first, well, I mean, he has, we kind of split the songwriting on the first Pay for Pain EP, and the second one is largely him. I have 2 songs on it, but the bulk of it and the direction of it is all his. So now it's just kind of like, let's see, we need to get together and like figure out what our catalog is going to look like moving forward before I can really decide what goes to what. And I'm also happy to be loose with it and have Pay for Pain songs appear on Wicca Phase records and vice versa.
that new, the last year Pay for Pain put out an EP, it was like kind of a hardcore EP.
Yeah, it's mostly Dennis.
Okay. Yeah, that was, I mean, you guys would, Tiger's Jaw had been on hardcore bills back in the day, but I don't know if I've ever heard you guys make music like that.
No. There's one Tiger's Jaw song, might be Static, I think. It's a Ben song where Dennis screams at the end. That's the closest we ever got to that. But yeah, this new one was all Dennis, and that's that's like the type of one of the types of music that me and Dennis bond over. Um, but again, I don't really know like if that's what Pay for Pain sounds like now or what. I don't know. We're not the best. We're not the best people for making a decision like that, like a big decision as to what a band sounds like.
I get it. Yeah, so this has been really fun. Is there anything else that you want to say, like about the new record or anything to plug?
I don't think I have anything else to say about it. I hope people like it. That's really all I can say. I hope that, I hope that one thing that I didn't expect with Tiger's Jaw was that those records would have lasting power. And I hope that the records that I'm making now will have that same lasting power. Um, and I feel this, especially strongly about this new record that um, maybe it takes some time for people to digest, but hopefully that just, gives it more longevity. I guess that's really all I have to say about it. Two release shows coming up. Wicca Phase Springs Eternal presents Eternal Twilight, August 5th in LA at the Echoplex, and September 9th in Brooklyn at Warsaw. Probably some more shows being announced soon. That's it.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Adam.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks again to Adam. Thanks so much for listening. And if you like what you heard, give it a good review, subscribe, tell your friends about it. It only takes a second to do stuff like that, and it really goes a long way, and we really appreciate it. Thanks so much. See you next time.